Welcome back to the DJ Sessions, where we feature the best DJs and producers from around the world. I'm your host, Darren, and right now I'm sitting in the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington, with none other coming all the way in from Chicago, Chi-Town, Jarod Glawe. How you doing today, Jarod?
I'm great. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see you're in your studio there. We're getting the B side to your studio because we'll be talking about the A side of your studio, but looks like you got a nice little workspace there.
I do, yeah. I have a kind of temporary bedroom converted into a studio since COVID. I used to work in different studios and have studios downtown, and now this is this is how people do it.
You know, things over the last few years changed a lot for us as well, especially doing the shows virtually now. A lot of people, they weren't set up for Zoom interviews. And if you caught them, they didn't have the lighting, they didn't have the camera, they didn't have the decor and everything set up. And we kind of took a new turn where we used to do a lot of in-person interviews, and now we moved them and started doing them virtually. And it kind of made us grow by a lot more because I could do the show anywhere I want in the world now, which is awesome.
Expands your opportunities like crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, you know, not having to wait for people to come to town and do those physical in-person interviews with them, which we're so excited to get back to here in the near future. But you are kind of just grinding. You're pushing some stuff out there. Your latest track you just released was I Don't Miss You Anymore on the Tell You Something Records Black Hole Recordings, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind that track?
So the original track was super like funky, and I think it was at like 100 BPM, and I just heard it and I loved the vocal. And so I was like, all right, how can I turn this into, you know, more of a dance track? I think the new one's like 124 BPM or something. So it was like super sped up. And at first I was thinking of making it like a festival, like big room type track drop. And then it wasn't fitting. Because sometimes when you push the vocal that much faster, it degrades the quality of it. So I kind of did the formant shifting, low voice, and then that kind of reminded me of a lot of like the slap house, A-Lock style drop tracks, which I've done a few of. And so that's kind of how it came to be. And I think it worked out really well.
And you're, from your bio says, you know, a superb wordsmith from beat one. Yes. Are you actually a vocalist or a
songwriter?
Songwriter.
So
okay.
I can't sing. I wish I could sing. That would be amazing. I've tried. I can't, as so far at least. So I've written a lot of the lyrics that vocalists have ended up singing on my tracks. Not all of them, especially some like the different collaborations, but a lot of them I wrote and then had the singer perform them.
And, you know, I did see that, you know, you turned your cable room into a mic room for a hot second.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of research on people before we get them on the show. Sure. But no, it just reminded me, you know, I wasn't sure if you were a full vocalist or you did your own lyrics or got up on the mic and was like a, you know, freestyling.
Oh, yeah.
Like a secret side of Jarod.
I record the occasional vocalist here, or I do a lot of, you know, during COVID, it's, you know, kind of doing whatever you have to do to keep, you know, things moving. So I have vocalists come here and record. I do audio engineering and kind of have a studio on the side as well. So that's like the other half of my career.
Yeah, I was when I saw I'm not sure what the actual, I should know what the name of that mic wall.
Yeah. It's a mic booth, but it's also like a mic closet. So it's both. It's a bedroom closet that's become.
No, it's funny. It took me back to the days back when I did a lot of video editing, and I would tell people a makeshift way to dampen your voice was to take your microphone, take a big blanket, and just drape it over your head and just talk inside the blanket, and it works. It kills all the reverb. You know, it's like perfect.
No, I've moved my studio already probably 3 times, and I'm actually preparing to do it again at the end of the year because I'll be moving. And I think this time I'm going to be able to start my dream studio because we're actually building a home and moving. And so I'm trying to just make the studio from the ground up and kind of have my own space. So these like soundboards I have behind me have moved like 5 places. Even before me, I bought them off of another DJ. So yeah.
Nice. And speaking of equipment and gear in your studio, I don't know if you can give us a shot of what you use or what was on your workstation. Yeah. I got a little preview of it, and I've seen some pictures and stuff. What are your primary instruments, tools that you use when you're making tracks?
Sure. So I have a Universal Audio Apollo X8 interface, which has been amazing because you know, I think a lot of people, I have a lot of experience with actual gear and signal flow and wiring from when I worked in studios for other artists throughout college and right out of college. And so the interface, sometimes people don't realize, like, the quality of your interface will determine the quality of the rest of your gear. If you have a $5,000 microphone, but a $300 interface, the signal is going to be downgraded to whatever the interface, you know, converters are. So the Apollo is like the heart of my studio. And then I have some Yamaha HS8 speakers, which I'm hoping to kind of get another set as well. But these things have been great and lasted me a long time, and I know them really well. And I work in Logic mostly. I have Ableton I've worked throughout as well, especially on like collabs when guys send over stuff in Ableton projects. But I prefer Logic, and I also am proud that I have a LA2A and 1176 compressors. So I actually have a little bit of analog gear to run stuff through. But yeah, I'm definitely a huge Logic guy. So,
well, I saw that you pre-ordered one of the new Mac toys that are coming out, and I saw those in the specs. I was like, whoa. I was like,
actually, it's crazy because it was supposed to come yesterday, and apparently there's another COVID outbreak in China, and so mine is stuck there for the time being because they're in lockdown. I was really sad because it was supposed to come yesterday.
There's nothing better than opening up a Mac box and just
right.
I used to work for Apple back in the day.
Oh,
so
really?
I started in retail and moved into corporate and kind of climbed the ladders, and then left corporate America. That was my last corporate job, and that was 2009. But still, I got MacBooks sitting in front of me. I got a MacBook in my backpack. You know.
Yeah. No.
Two iPhones, 2 sets of. Yeah. So I mean, they've really come a long way. Especially, you know, the funny thing is I remember a few years back though when they came out with that Mac Pro Tower, and when you spec'd it out, it was like $50K, and that wasn't even with the monitor. The new monitor that was like $13K or something crazy like that. That and monitor
they had. There were like $800 wheels for it. Yeah.
And I'm like, who's because my first Mac was a dual G5 or no, a quad G5.
Oh man.
Right out of college. And we were using G3s in school doing video editing, and then the G4s and then the G5s. I bought that, and I think I spec'd that unit was 7,500, and that was still top of the line for a Mac Pro Tower. But 50K, I'm like, what? Like,
it's insane.
No, that's too much. But I love my new MacBook Pro. It's like a knife through butter. I had a 19, and now I got a 21 in 2021. But I could talk Mac computers and all that stuff all day long. I just saw that little bad boy that you had there.
Yeah,
and it's coming in, and congratulations on that purchase. Quick question, going back a little bit into your history, do you come from a musical family?
Yes and no. I had a great grandpa who was a musician. He played the clarinet a lot, and you know, my parents went through band, I think, you know, throughout school, but they weren't super musical, but they're very supportive of it. And then I grew up playing clarinet and band throughout high school until my senior year, and then I kind of thought I was done with music, and it's, you know, it came back around.
And did you really know how to play the piano at 9 years old?
Yeah, I did, but I stopped earlier than that. I think I started on the drums in like first grade. That lasted a couple of years, and then I switched to piano, and that lasted until maybe like 6th or 7th grade, where I switched to just clarinet. But I actually didn't like the clarinet. I'll be honest. It's not the most fun instrument. I wish I had stuck with piano, because nowadays that's mostly what I'm using.
Yeah, and you know, producing music stands kind of synonymous with spending countless hours behind the computer, sculpting beats, making beats. What do you do in your free time to stay fit?
I wish I did more. I sit at the computer all day, and then I'll try to go. I guess going on walks for me is about as much as I do right now. I also am fortunate that like my unhealthy habits haven't caught up with me since I've just turned 25. So like I'm kind of anticipating in the next few years I'm going to start having to work out more. Uh, but yeah, I try to go on walks, especially in the summer and the spring when it's warm out here. It's when I get stuck on a project or I'm not making any progress and I start getting frustrated, it's really nice to just be able to go outside, go walk around town, get fresh air, and then come back and I kind of have a new perspective. So that kind of keeps me going. But yeah, I wish I had more to say there.
Or release baby sea turtles into the ocean.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun.
So what's how many tracks do you actually produce in a month, and how many end up getting released on average?
That's a great question. Well, I kind of it totally depends on what opportunities are in front of me. And I also so I have my professional side as a DJ and producer, and then I also am producing for clients that will hire me to work for them. And so I'd say I probably work on 1 to 2 client tracks throughout the month, and then on my own tracks probably another 2 to 3. But I like, for example, right now I'm at a point where I have over like 8 unreleased tracks or 9, and so I can't produce more because by the time it could come out it's going to be over a year from now, and then I'm going to be listening to that track like, oh, I don't like this anymore. And that's actually something I've been dealing with lately because it's very frustrating to want to make more music and almost not be able to because you already have all these releases lined up. And so that's something I actually have been learning to try to deal with and just be like, you know what, enjoy the free time and waiting for the stuff to come out. But yeah, it's an interesting problem to have because up until now I haven't really had that yet.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, I was talking to you a little bit about it before the show, is the ramp up of having so much content.
Yeah.
I've had people say, why are you producing so much content? Or they'll even ask me, do you go back and watch your old episodes?
Yeah.
And we're producing so much that we're literally going to be up at about 1,000 episodes a year coming.
Wow.
Yeah, that'll be our yearly average, probably even more than that. And my answer to it is always, no, I don't go back and watch the old episodes because I was right there making them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, this one's in the can, put it in, put it out, and move on to the next one. You know, and in the production world, the video world, or at least my take on it, and this might, I hope I'm not misquoting Gary V, if you know who Gary V is.
Yeah.
But, you know, content is king. You know, if you're producing something once a week or once a month, or, you know, music probably has a little different lifetime, you know, because like you said, you want to release a track maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks. I don't know. Somebody could just be banging bangers out and, you know.
Yeah. I think 6 weeks is like the ideal amount of time. That's what I try to aim for. But it's also like, you know, if you collaborate with another artist, you have to worry about their release schedule. And then you have to worry about the label's release schedule, which you don't always have a ton of control over. So it's crazy to try to schedule all of that. And there are more independent guys who are just releasing like a track every other week, which is amazing. But also I think when you have vocalists, it's a completely different dynamic because there's such more work involved, and more people to have to interact with and coordinate with. So yeah, it just kind of depends. But I think six weeks is like the sweet spot for me.
If I waited 6 weeks to make every one episode,
yeah, that would be very much.
Like, wouldn't we maybe do 10 episodes a year?
Right.
I mean, maybe it was like covering a festival and it was like a whole big like 5-hour production of a show in different parts from one event, maybe. But yeah, it's content is king. And, you know, do you find it depends, like you said, a lot of different moving parts there. And, you know, you just, if you miss that loop too, it's like, now you got to wait for the whole next cycle to come out, you know, and if you didn't get it in there. What's the longest time you've ever spent consecutively working on a track in the studio?
Like a single track?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if I have an exact answer for that, because what I will tell you is that I've had a track actually that's hopefully coming out soon that has been in the works for over 2 years. And it's a lot of just going back and forth where you'll have it and then it sits on the side and then it comes back. That's more so what I'd say I've experienced. And this one track has been like my baby, I feel like. And I started it in like, I think it would be, probably the fall of 2020. And it's finally just now coming around, like, it's the 6th version of it. And it's going to be a huge release, and I'm like so excited for it, but it just feels like it's taken forever. Yeah.
And while you're sitting there making beats, do you allow people to come over and like chill in the studio with you and hang out? Does that help for your inspiration?
I guess it just depends. I definitely don't have a problem with it, but I also work a lot during the day because this is, my life. And a lot of people, everyone wants to hang out in the studio at night, and so by the time people come around, I'm like, I already nailed out this track today. What do you want to talk about? So it's nice when I do, though. But in Chicago, a lot of people here are just really into hip hop and rap. And so I have a lot of buddies that are more in that realm as well. And so we kind of share our differences genre wise and go back and forth with that stuff too.
And I saw you sometimes allow pets in your studio.
Oh yeah.
What's the kitty's name?
Yeah, I have 2, Hemingway and Mitchell. And they're my fiance and I, they're like our babies. And so they people actually like call them studio cats. So my one issue is like if someone wants to come out in the studio and they're allergic to cats, I'm just like, I'm sorry. Like you're not allowed in the studio, I guess. I don't want you to have bad allergies, but they're my co-producers. So they hang out. It's amazing. They're not bothered by the sound. So they'll just sleep while I'm like banging this music out, and it's just normal to them because they've had it their whole lives. But yeah, absolutely. It helps kind of when you get stressed with a track to have like an animal there with you. I don't know what it is, but it's cool. It's an advantage of a home studio.
Absolutely. We used to have I had one of my cats, and we would do our live streaming show out of my apartment in the living room. We actually started it in my living room, like, 13 years ago. And then we moved it to my bedroom, but she would get up on the decks and just lay right on the decks while we're streaming live on the show. And just, it was always, we called her Simbi, the disco cat.
That's great.
And so, yeah, she'd just jump on the boards or just get up on the DJ table in the living room and just sit in front of everyone. Everyone was like, and the music's just blaring, but she's like, look at me. Like,
yeah. Cats are hilarious.
Yeah, they're awesome. I love cats. What would you consider your biggest break that launched your DJ career?
That's a good question. I'll tell you a story about almost not my DJ career, but I think I've had a very unique path so far in that I went to school and got a double major in music business and electronic music production sound design. And so my senior year of college, I was working at a studio downtown, and we ended up working on this album for a rapper you might have heard of named G Herbo, who he did this, definitely not in the DJ world. He did a track with Marshmello though. But we ended up working, I was an intern on his album PTSD. It was a platinum selling album. And so outside of that, I got a job working for the rapper Twista, who's a legend out here for working with Kanye and, Mariah Carey, Chris Brown, a ton of artists. And so I was working for him because of that experience at the internship. And throughout that, I think I've networked and met a lot of people as well. And I have to give a shout out to a mentor I had that I met here in Chicago, Nick Gunn, who was also under the artist name Limelight with Armada, and he's releasing with Armada a lot, and so he's really mentored me and taught me everything I know. And my manager Ano as well has really helped me network and meet people. And I mean, I've just found it's all networking. So much of it is you kind of have to reach a certain threshold of ability, and then the rest is kind of just like getting yourself out there and meeting people who know somebody else to listen to your tracks. And that's, I think, where all the breaks have come from. Yeah,
That's a story. That's where I mean, I take my takeaway is just your ability to network,
Yeah.
and being out there. You're not gonna get found out if you aren't talking to anyone.
Right.
That's
And
just the truth.
labels just get so many tracks a day that I still, I mean, in a sense, but everyone's been there where you're just cold sending your track to anybody who will listen. And even, I've even had experiences where labels are like, we love the track, send something else. And it's like, okay, well, you like it, but you don't want it. So then you have to keep sending more. And it's, it takes years. And then eventually the track might come out or it might not. And I have plenty of tracks that haven't gotten picked up and just kind of, no one ever hears them. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting turn of events when we're planning to release our label in 2023. We're setting up a lot of stuff here for 2022, and then we'll have the DJ Sessions label starting probably Q1, Q2, 2023, and that's going to be an exciting time because you got to think we're going to get all these submissions coming in, and who's going to listen to all those submissions coming in, and who has the time,
ready.
And do we just sign everyone? Do we just pick everyone up, or yes, you're on, yes, you're on, yes, you're on? I mean, obviously we want quality music, but it's going to be a very interesting time, and I'm looking forward to creating that department and that team that's going to go through that, to kind of go through and cherry pick what's going to define the DJ Sessions as a label, which is going to be awesome. Super excited for that. Who has been your biggest influence when it comes to your career as an artist, and why?
Do you mean like another artist?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Nick earlier.
I mean, from that perspective, Nick as almost a mentor, because we create very different styles of music. So he started as a trance producer. Well, he didn't start as a trance producer, but in the dance kind of scene, his big break, I think, was with Armada and the trance side of things. And he was already a really successful world music producer, but neither of those genres were something that I was interested in making for myself. But through his experience in the industry, he taught me so much, as well as being a producer. He taught me so much because in school you learn the technical side of things, but that only gets you so far. And that's kind of what I struggled with, was like, hey, I know how to produce, but what am I missing here? And he filled in all those gaps for me. And I think as a kid, like the first EDM song that I really remember was Animals by Martin Garrix. That like in high school was just like everywhere, in Skrillex. So I think that's what really, and Hardwell really introduced me to the scene. And I started in hip hop, like that's what is popular out here still. And so that's really where I started. And I very quickly then transitioned into the EDM side of things, because just the rap scene wasn't really me. I liked producing, but I wanted to be an artist myself, and I didn't rap. So it's like, you could be a background guy, but I wanted to be me. And so that's how I kind of found my way.
Funny, there's some parallel of that. I was a kid growing up in the 80s, and I gravitated towards, my brothers were punk rockers and rock music, and the other kids were getting into the glam rock at the time, the Def Leppard, the Poison, and that kind of stuff. I started gravitating towards UTFO, Run DMC, these East Coast rappers. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, you have NWA coming out, you have Dre coming out, Snoop, and then the Biggie, Tupac era, and moving forward with all these rappers. And I went a lot towards rap music. But it was funny, when we were cruising in our cars, it was the rap music that had the bass. And there wasn't a big music selection for electronic music at the time. I was just talking to my friend the other night. Some of the first electronic music I really got into was more like Enigma or Deep Forest.
Sure.
And those early stages, and even in the electronic music section of the stores that I'd work in, I would call them record stores, but they're more CD tape stores.
Yeah.
The section was very small, and you found compilation CDs, and that would be like the hit, because everything was being pressed on vinyl, and vinyl was in the clubs.
Yeah.
And so I remember I went out, I was 18 years old, to my first dance club, where it was like a house night. That's where we were talking a little bit before the interview with met Donald Glawe and saw my first DJ spinning electronic music, and everyone's just going crazy. And when I say crazy, it was in the part of our college town by the University of Washington. So it's like a bunch of students. You're 18 years old. You're out late at night. You know, it's 1 a.m. This is right when rays were just coming in like 92, 93-ish in our area. And you know, that I would listen to electronic music when I came down to hang out with my friends in the city, but when I was back home, it was hip hop and rap music.
Yeah.
With 215s in the back of the Cadillac rolling around, you know.
Yeah.
So two different kind of worlds, but yeah, started, and then I just kind of started shifting over to electronic music, so I can kind of understand where you're coming from. You're in this hip hop culture environment.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to do something. I want to be out in electronic music, and yeah, people's tastes grow over time. Do you ever see yourself producing outside of EDM? Or I use that term lightly, by the way. I should say electronic music.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I've produced a lot of pop tracks. I enjoy producing pop, as well as I've delved into hip hop. Outside of that, I don't think so. Probably. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I have also been working on kind of a side project, doing some like world music stuff, like slowly dipping my feet into it, just as kind of pushing myself to see what else I could do. So especially in the times where I don't have other stuff to work on, it's like how can I keep growing and expanding my you know, my repertoire almost. So not stuff, you know, under my artist name, but just kind of other opportunities and seeing where it goes. And yeah, so I guess I am, as I wasn't thinking at first that I do, but I do.
Was you'll have to fill in the blanks here for me. Was it the Oceana project, or there was a
the Outlaw Ocean Music Project?
Thank you. Yeah. Was that one of your dabbles into more world music, or is that
Yeah, that actually was probably my first. And that was a great opportunity. Actually, you can't listen to those tracks anymore, unfortunately, because there was an incident with that project. I don't know if you've heard about it. I don't want to bring up the drama too much, but you can, if you Google it, you could find out there was some legal issues that actually happened with the project, and so we had to take my stuff down. It wasn't anything that I did. It was on the other side of things, but yeah, it was a great opportunity and experience. And yeah, it was cool, and the project is great.
And what do you think the most important thing that record labels should be doing for their artists, and are they doing a good job with what you think they should be doing for them?
I think that they need to expand their willingness to open a conversation with artists they're communicating with. And what I mean by that is, you know, record labels have their exclusive artists who they invest a lot in, and you know, maybe each label has a dozen guys or something like that when we're talking about the dance EDM labels. And then everyone else is kind of a, you know, if they hear a track they really like, you're in. But if you don't, then that's it. That's the end of the conversation unless you send them another track they like. And I've found that if the A&R is willing to say, hey, I like this vocal, or I like your production, but why don't you try to fix X, Y, and Z, and then maybe this can turn into something we like. That often doesn't happen at certain labels, and it's really frustrating as a producer, because you're sitting here knowing that you can create something great, but they're not communicating their vision to you as well as they could be. Sometimes, not everyone does that, but a lot are kind of stereotyped for doing that. And I just think that there's a lot of tracks that could exist that don't, because of just the lack of conversation and communication. And it's just because they have so many people sending records to them that they easily can just go to somebody else who has a track that's, you know, that's already what they want. But I think there's a lot of talented producers out there that don't get a fair chance because of the excess amount of tracks being sent. And I get both sides.
Would you recommend it to somebody to, if they were knocking on those doors and just weren't getting any headway, to just form their own label and release their own stuff and get it out there on Spotify, SoundCloud, Beatport, and say, boom, I'm a company. Here's where it goes. I own the rights to all of my music rather than maybe selling it off, for what they can get.
Yeah, I've had this conversation a million times, and from my perspective, I think the sweet spot is you should be always trying to aim for these bigger labels because they're just going to have connections and opportunities that you oftentimes can't get yourself, specifically in the marketing realm of things. And so I think that if you're not getting your tracks picked up by the label, you should self-release it and start growing from there, but consistently still keep it a goal to get those tracks released by the larger labels because they're going to get you opportunities that you often can't find on your own. And then ideally, once the label kind of helps kind of mentor you and grow you as an artist, then you have the fan base and following to then go back to your own label. You don't need the other label to push you as much anymore. And then you keep your masters and royalties and everything. And I think that's actually what I've started doing as well. I started a label called Blue Ember Music, and basically when I have a disagreement with an A&R, or my track isn't getting picked up or it's not the way they want it to be and I disagree, then I can self-release it, own the complete master, do my own marketing the way I want to. And it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You have both opportunities there simultaneously. And we see that with a lot of DJs. They end up, once they're really successful on a big label like Spinnin' or Armada, they'll start their own sub label. And that way they have more artistic choice and they keep more of their master, but they still have the marketing connections with the bigger label. And yeah, it's the best of both worlds for sure.
And speaking of royalties and getting paid and all this, what is the craziest way someone has ever tried to pay you? Be it something like Bitcoin, in cake, NFTs, or what's something you wouldn't take as a form of payment?
I don't think I would take NFTs as a form of payment. I also just don't know enough about them. That's probably why. I think the craziest ways aren't how I've been paid, but trying to get paid. Musicians are all broke and they will do anything they can to procrastinate paying you back. So I've definitely had to hunt down money over the course of time, and sometimes you just know, like, I'm never gonna get paid for this thing that I did, or you'll get it years later even. I had a ghost production that I made that was on a website for like 3 years and I got an email in January that someone bought it for a ton of money, and it was like, I felt like it was Christmas because I forgot I ever made this thing. So that was like the best surprise payment I think I've ever gotten, because sometimes when you produce so many tracks, you don't even remember what you have and don't have. So ghost production is another thing I have on the side occasionally.
And with NFTs being those 3 new little letters that are kind of ringing out there a lot, you say you haven't looked too much into it. Have you ever read? Do you know just a little about what they do, what they are?
No, I totally understand the concept. I was into Bitcoin, I still am, but with the NFTs, it's almost I feel overwhelmed, and so I see everybody doing it. I just am hesitant to take the investment because I do not know at all how it will pay off. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I think I need someone to teach me. If you want to educate me after this.
I've learned through many years of trial and error, and a good friend of mine coming to me last year that says, don't do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And so there are people that I have that I work with that are on top of all of that. They're getting ready to start up a whole NFT thing, and because we're looking at doing NFTs for our brand, for our show, and with all our episodes, and we have some kind of unique ways that we want to bring it out there that I haven't seen. But just the fact that I could say, oh, hey, Jarod, here's an NFT of our interview I'm going to gift to you. Right. But there's also, we're going to make 50 of these available for sale for $1 a piece or something, that we could say, oh, Jarod's fan base, they're going to go pick these NFTs up of your interview for $1 a piece and then hold on to them or do whatever they want to, and how they go through. I mean, we're still wrapping our head around that concept of even using it with video, because a lot of it is just, a lot is artwork, but there was the first NFT label that just came out, and so they're minting everything.
Purple Fly.
Maybe I should know that.
With the futuristic polar bears, I think they did a track with them that I think there's an NFT coming out. Yeah, I know of them. I actually we have a track together. I guess we haven't announced it yet, but I think we might be doing a collab on that label. So I am actually a little more familiar, I guess, with NFTs in that aspect. There's so many artists and labels that are starting to like. I saw it's the 25th anniversary for Black Hole Recordings, and so they're doing an NFT for that. So yeah, I mean, and I saw the whole Blau thing with his NFT, and I think that's the first time I heard of it. And yeah, so I'm sure I'll be delving into this universe sooner or later.
When you look at it from the standpoint of having a merch store and you're selling T-shirts, you're selling keychains, you're selling coffee mugs, or you're selling graphics or stickers that your fans can buy, having that as another product in the store, just the buzzword will be like, you know what? I'm not going to buy the sticker. I'm going to buy the NFT sticker. And then I feel I own a little bit of that. And then, you know, your residual pay, if that ever sells up, I know that Erythium 3 is supposed to be coming out, 2 or 3. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. My homeboy is like, just wait for this to come out because it's a lot more secure, a lot more robust. And I'm like, all right, cool. And we're working on, basically, we got like 3 different companies we're working on together outside of everything I do. And it's kind of crazy, but yeah, looking into that NFT market is, it's kind of the buzzword right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how artists can make that. There was a guy I saw, I think he made like 7 paintings and he valued them at like $70,000 or $90,000, took NFT shots of all of them, and then went and blew them all up with fireworks. Oh, and so the only version of that ever exists now is that NFT version. There's no physical copy of the painting anymore. And then put those NFTs up, and it showed the video of him blowing up the paintings. You know, there are just people whose marketing abilities blow me away. You know, it's a true talent and an asset, and you can make such good money that way. That is not something that I think I am. That's not where my gifts lie, I guess you could say. But I wish I was more creative in that aspect. It's so cool to see what people have done. I've heard many stories like that. Yeah, and speaking of cool things that people do, you have a Jarod Glawe radio. Yeah. So what was the thought? What got you into making that? Is it a monthly series or a weekly series? It's the last Thursday of every month. It's just basically my favorite tracks, maybe top 15-ish tracks of the month in an hour. And it's kind of just like a my taste type thing. And I started it maybe 2 years ago as just another avenue to get exposure out there. And I hope as I grow as an artist, then the radio will grow. And I want to do some live mixes for it. A lot of it aren't live mixes. It's just playing the tracks. But that I created it during COVID. So I wasn't doing the Twitch DJing thing. I wish I kind of did. But I do have a set of CDJs. And so I'm absolutely, you know, they say like, are you a DJ and then a producer, or a producer and then a DJ? And I'm much more so a producer than a DJ. And I love both, but producing will always be my like first love. And DJing is a way to show that, I guess, is how I would describe it for me. Yeah. And what do you listen to any other podcasts or radio shows regularly? And if so, what would be your top 3 that you listen to? That's a good question. I mean, I like to go on 1001 track lists and just listen to whatever the top kind of sets are. So I wouldn't say there's a specific one, but I'm on that website all the time. Not only just like to see what tracks are hot, but just as a like I have some free time, let's listen to whoever, you know, is popular right now. I know like Vintage Culture is like super popular on there with his sets. But yeah, I'm just on there all the time. So it could be anyone from Martin Garrix's radio to David Guetta or whoever's on there at the time. Yeah. We just started and got approved to list on 1001 track lists with some of our shows. Nice. So if you had a guest mix, we'd get that submitted and get that up in there. I didn't know the submission policies though, that you had to kind of be known somewhat and approved.
Yes.
I thought anyone could submit up there, and it's not that
No.
way. I had a set kick back just recently. I was like, but they're kind of pretty big in New York, and they're like, well, we haven't heard of them, and I'm like, okay, you know. But I 1001 track lists. You know, you're kind of speaking in the realm of my fam right now, because I work very closely with Luke at Futuristic Polar Bears.
Yeah.
I work closely with 1001 track lists.
Yeah, well, Luke's who introduced me to you.
Yeah.
Luke's awesome.
Luke is awesome. Shout outs to Luke. So you mentioned that you didn't look into anything with the live streaming. And why didn't you decide to go that route?
Well, I think that at the time, my career in EDM, if we want to call it EDM, started in like 2019. I think I released my first track on Tell You Something in Black Hole. And then that kind of grew. And I think in 2020, when COVID was starting, I was finally reaching the point where I was hoping to start playing in clubs. And then that kind of all went on a standstill. And so I think just like everybody else, I had some personal struggles in trying to figure out where I wanted to go with things. And DJing just wasn't the priority at the time for me, because I was just kind of thinking from the mindset of, you know, this just isn't what's hot right now. It's on standstill. And so I think everyone who's a DJ at heart was doing that. But as a producer first, I was really in the studio grinding things out. And then now that we're kind of getting back to normal, and I'm hoping to start playing in clubs soon, I'm kind of navigating back to that and trying to expand, you know, myself as a DJ as well as a producer. So kind of just coming back around to it now that it's more of a possibility and there's more people to listen to it. And yeah.
Have you done anything in the VR or AR? Not so much the AR, but more the virtual reality realm?
I've heard of it. I have. My first VR experience was I got the PlayStation VR a few years ago, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And now that headset's kind of dated, and you can only use it with a PlayStation. So I really want to get into it again. I've seen some DJs using it. I don't know what the site's called or whatever it is, but I definitely know someone who's been doing that. It looks super cool. I just haven't invested in the setup, but I think there's a lot of potential with it. When I was in college, this was maybe like 2018 or 2017. We had a class that was talking about how VR is the future of music performance. And I love the idea and concept of it. I really think it'll be something, especially in the next few years. So I want to dive into that. I think that would be really cool.
We just launched 2 nightclubs in alt space. One called Entry, one called Beta. And I was literally on a phone call today because talking with some people that I talked with, we're planning to dive in and go all heads in VR. I'm usually like a first mover when it comes to tech, like doing live streaming DJ shows. That was 13 years ago for me. Before that, I was podcasting for 5 years. Before that, it was broadcast television. Before that, it was public access. It's always going to be on that cutting edge of the next level. And VR is going to be there. And then AR and then XR.
What's XR?
XR crossover reality. So basically you're having a virtual reality experience while in real life, but it's augmented reality is like with Pokemon.
Yeah, I know the augmented.
But yeah, XR is like a crossover reality. It's not there yet because the devices aren't there yet, but will be it's coming down the line. You know, we're excited because you necessarily don't need a headset. We're designing everything we do for the Oculus headset, just because it's a really easy price point. We're going to see a lot of those going out. You know, people are just going to start running out and buying $5,000 computers and $3,000 headsets. You know, I mean, the super users will, and it'll be like, all right, cool, you got the Ferrari. That's awesome. But my kid, I can't afford a Ferrari for my kid. So, you know, if we want to get these early adapters and younger generation people on board, we got to look to what the price point is going to be that's going to mass disseminate these. So I'm really excited about that. But you can still go online via a computer and watch our shows. And where we're already thinking 5, 10, almost 15 years out. And on what we've just launched here. That's why we call it beta, because we haven't even got to version 1 yet.
Sure.
Of what we're doing. I was on a phone call with somebody today about a company that runs VR chat, alt space, and all the big companies and video games and all this stuff, so we could scale and have 10,000 people in our club.
Wow.
In our environment. And he's like, oh yeah, there's already people out there that are doing 100,000 people shows on online VR. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I know we're fledgling and we're right there, but we want to be able to host those bigger environments and do it bigger, better, and be ahead of the competition.
That'd be so cool. I would love to DJ a virtual set. That's a new goal for me that I just have decided.
And right now, a lot of people, they're just bringing in, a player. So it's like you're in virtual reality and you're watching it like a big screen TV. But if you have the headset on, I can make a theater as big as an IMAX screen.
Wow. And
you can be watching the concert on like an IMAX theater, and the audio quality, it's there. I mean, it's not going to be I was just showing my friend the other day, playing around, how I set up spatial audio on the stage, and as you get closer to the stage, you're closer to the speakers, and it gets louder as you walk away to the dance floor. It kind of gets like normalized, in this whole club. And it's some really cool stuff. We'll check it out. We'll touch base on that offline.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because we're looking to do a lot more than just playing music in there. We'd like to invite artists to come by and hang out and sit down and meet with people and do kind of virtual meet and greets.
Sure.
In the club, or record release parties, album release parties, all that kind of stuff. And you just can say, okay, jump in here. You could be on your laptop and you're there talking to somebody, and you could do it you could sell passes to it, or guest passes or something to it, or members only. It's gonna be tons of stuff you can do, and it isn't that hard to jump in right now. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for it,
right?
But I have a developer team that helps me out. That when I can't understand it, I'm like, okay, pay the money out here for hours of time. Tell me how this is done. They're like, yep, okay, cool. And I used to be anti that, but again, it goes back to that premise, don't do everything yourself.
Oh yeah.
Find people to help and work with and help grow, because you can burn out really easy trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah, you can't. I've learned that as well. And there's just people who are really good at certain things, and you can't be a jack of all trades. You could try, but I found that you kind of just end up being average at a lot of things instead of really good at something. And you kind of have to find a team of people that, have different talents and skills. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
If you could give a piece of advice to an up and coming producer, one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would have to say network.
Okay. At
the same time, I would say that before you try networking, make sure that your tracks are as good as your favorite artists or the best artists out there, because sometimes you only get one shot, and there are people who I think spend too much time networking and they don't have the quality there. You hit the threshold and then focus on networking. Hit that threshold of quality music, put the years in, your 10,000 hours in, they say, put the time in. It takes a lot of years, be persistent, and don't give up either, because I think a lot of people burn out or just don't, think something's possible. And I've definitely seen for myself that anything is possible, and you will achieve success if you put your mind to it. But it takes, I think, a lot of dedication, and you have to be strong and willing to make sacrifices.
Awesome. Great advice there. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know about before we let you get back to working there in your studio?
You can follow me at Jarod Glawe Official on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter is just Jarod Glawe. But expect some new tracks from me every 6 weeks. And this year, I'm going to absolutely have the biggest releases of my life on some huge labels that I've dreamt of releasing on. And so I feel like this, come the end of the summer and the fall, this will be the culmination of a lot of what I've worked towards. So I look forward to sharing that with everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. And we will definitely be in touch with you. We plan to stay in touch with everyone that comes on the show at least every 6 months, touch base with them, check in, see what's going on. And I'll have to give you a tour of that VR nightclub sometime.
I'll be there. I'm going to buy an Oculus headset. Let's go.
My friend said to me, it was so funny how I got mine. He got one. I saw him online with it. I hit him up. I was thinking about getting one. He said, Darren, it'll be the best $300 you ever spend. And then I started going out and I started looking for them, and there were none on the shelves anywhere. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to buy one. I was in Target and they're like, nope, we're sold out. And I'm like,
Wow.
So then I went to the Amazon 4-star, just found one, woke up one day and said, I'm going to get one. I put mine on. He walked me through that day. I was blown away with everything he showed me. 2 days later, I went and bought one for my mom and my dad.
Yep.
Each.
Oh yeah.
One for each of them. Like this is the coolest. This is the coolest stuff ever. You know?
When I got the PlayStation VR, and that came out in like 2017 or something. Like it was really new then. And I had this like Shark Tank dive thing, and I had my mom try it, and she actually fell like from standing up onto the floor because she got so scared, and she was okay. So it's funny to laugh at. But it's so crazy to experience that. It's mind blowing. And to people who haven't tried it, it's like, you don't know what you're missing. It really is. And especially when you have the audio with it, it's a different experience when you have the headphones in as well. That really like takes you into the world fully, and don't have friends that try to scare you while you're in the virtual reality, because that messes with you too.
I sometimes see those videos where you got the person and they go and they dive into the TV or like, I don't know if they're staged or not, but you're like, people really think, and they're like, oh, let me run.
You need a babysitter to make sure you don't hurt yourself.
Well, the first time I know we were just wrapping up the interview. I just leave this. The first time I was playing with one of what's called first steps in there, that was so real that I took one of the controllers, and this is before I started putting the armbands around my wrists. Sure. And I took one of the controllers and I set it on the table. The next thing I hear, I go clunk, and I went, there's not really a table there. I mean, it's that crazy. But again, I can talk VR. We'll save for next time. We'd love to see you in the clubs. Jarod, thank you so much for coming on the DJ sessions. It was a pleasure, and we look forward to having you on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Jarod. Don't forget to check out Jarod, coming in all the way from Chicago, and everything that he's up to. I think it was Jarod Glawe Official, right, on Instagram?
Jarod Glawe Official, yep.
There we go, on Insta, the Instas. Gotta love those IGs. Yeah. And don't forget to go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on Instagram, find us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. I love my TikToks. This is Darren and Jarod Glawe coming to you for the DJ Sessions presents the virtual sessions. And you know what happens on the DJ Sessions? The music never stops.